Welcome back to Are You Smarter Than a... Actually, no, wrong show. This is Parker Ponders. Forgot what we're filming. I am back. It's been an interesting couple weeks. So, I did run my marathon. What type of marathon? An ultra marathon. An ultra marathon is anything over 26.2 miles, which is about as broad as it can get. There's races that are 30 miles or 50 kilometers. There's races that are 35, 50, 100, 200, 240. And a guy I was talking to said they're having a 300-mile race in Moab. Now, that might already exist somewhere else. But so very wide. I ran a 50-miler, and it went well. It was really hard. Shocker. I ran it with my cousin and some of his work friends, and we all got it done. My cousin, he was the first of us, which is awesome. He crushed it, put in a ton of effort, and he was actually sick like the week before. And so McKay Roberts, massive respect. He really balled out and just put up a show that day. It was really cool. Really cool to see. I was running with him for the first 13, and then he just slowly went ahead and just kept going ahead. So, mad props. It was a lot more difficult in certain areas. The terrain was a lot harder, but anyway, I'm not going to get into it too much, but really fun race, and just I was proud that I got it done. And then after the race, and also I was so grateful for my sister-in-law and brother and mom. They all came out and were there the whole day. My sister-in-law got like 3 naps in throughout the day because it started at 6:30 and she's pregnant. So probably got a terrible night's sleep before. So that really meant a lot for them to come out and just support. So really great experience. And then afterwards, I got my tonsils out, which is why I haven't actually recorded something in a couple of weeks, because I was getting that taken care of. Now, usually for adults, it's kind of atypical to get your tonsils out. I had mine swollen for about 3 months back in September. And honestly, my tonsils aren't as bad as a lot of people's. They just don't want to go through the recovery because it does suck. But I have always had really big tonsils, and weirdly, it was half curiosity of what it would feel like having them out. That was half the reason I got them out. They did bug me for that 3-month period, but before then it wasn't like chronic sickness like a lot of adults deal with inflamed tonsils. But mine were super big. He said it was a 3+ out of 4. We got those suckers out, and took about, honestly, it's not 100% yet. When I yawn, it still hurts a little bit, but it took about 10 days before I felt 80% back. And I'd say I'm at 90 right now, 85, 90. But medicine's cool. Anesthesia, it's just so weird to me that knocks you out in under 10 seconds. It's just really, really cool and fascinating that some people a lot smarter than myself have developed those drugs, and I just think it's way cool. I think innovation and invention is super interesting. I have recently been, looking at the idea, which is not new. It's by Clayton Christensen, which is called, I believe it's innovative disruption. How new companies, how new ideas disrupt the current market, and how they're usually small startups, because big companies, they don't have they're already doing so well that they don't want to allocate resources on the side to this dingy side project that might fail. They're just a lot less risk averse, and their structure doesn't allow for as much, um, I guess, chance taking. Not every company, but so that's been a pretty interesting concept to mull over. How a lot of startups are the ones that disrupt the industry, and the biggest example is, at least the first biggest example that comes to mind from him, is the mass production of cars, which was in 1908, I believe, and how that just revolutionized transportation. Not the first car being produced by Henry Ford, because it might not have been Henry Ford actually. The first cars were super luxury and not really accessible to people, so that wasn't really a disruption because most people were traveling the same way by horse and buggy. But it's all about how these risks and these innovative ideas, they take longer to develop often because they have fewer resources. It's never been done. There's no blueprints to work off of. And a lot of these companies are really small doing it too. But once these ideas hit the market, then they take over a lot faster than the, I guess, existing beliefs and existing ideologies that are in place. So pretty interesting. Also, I keep licking my lips. My lip is dry. I've had like this one corner where I swear just skin keeps like flaking off. It's kind of uncomfortable. But if you look at me and think I'm like the Joker, then that's why. That's why I got these scars. I used to do a really good Joker impression, actually. Let's see, like, you want to know why I got these scars? You see, my father was a drinking man. See, I can't do it anymore. I can't even do it. It's just like hearing myself. It's pathetic. I should practice that because I was pretty good. Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face. No, it's just bad. It's like I put in a little Grinch there, mixed with a little Joker. I don't know, it was bad. But anyway, yeah. So that's been interesting. That's what's been going on. So the tonsils are healing. Got back into running, and it's been a wild time. Times are wild right now. With spring coming up, I bought a ski pass and I haven't been able to use it nearly as much as I hope because I am just at the beginning of a couple of different business endeavors, and they are taking a lot of time, and which is good. I'm excited about it. I'm excited, but it's just weird that the winter is almost behind us. At least I'm in Utah, so winter's almost gone. I was talking to someone because I used to live in San Antonio, and honestly, San Antonio, if you've heard anything from Charles Barkley, you'll know how he feels about San Antonio. I think it is a very mediocre city. There are some redeemable neighborhoods on the outskirts, but this is how I describe San Antonio, and I will be honest, Texas in general. Now, I know that people have really big ties to Texas, so I don't mean to antagonize a whole group of people, but this is just me, okay? And no hate, but and comment if I'm getting this wrong, I want to know. But I feel like Texas doesn't have anything that other states don't have. It's a fine state. It really is. And I will say maybe that one caveat is Austin. At least I'm a big comedy fan, and a lot of stand-up comics are moving down to Austin because Joe Rogan initially kind of started this wave of bringing people there, bigger names and stuff. And, it's obviously, there's a great school there. It's just it seems like kind of the up-and-coming LA in a way. So I would maybe put Austin on the side. Besides that, it just feels like a bunch of, okay, you know? Um, no, not a ton of mountains, no real special food. Like, oh yeah, Tex-Mex, brisket. Okay, well, okay, I guess so. I don't know. And I don't mean to be hating on it, but I don't really feel like Texas has anything unique to offer. Maybe the culture, right? There's a culture, a unique culture down there. So maybe that's it. And again, I love that people love Texas, but it's just like, at least my small experience. I was there like 2 years. It was like fine. It's fine. It was meh. But I will say that most of what I enjoy is pretty much perfect in Utah. Climbing, um, running, skiing, boating, all that fun stuff. It's just Utah is one of the meccas for a lot of that. So I'm basically I'm glad that I live where I live. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Here's one thing that I thought about, and I was talking to a friend. She said that her friend, I heard this friend who said this friend's friend, her cousin told, no, okay, that's what that sounded like. But no, her friend said she lived in an Airbnb, she booked an Airbnb in a bunch of different cities throughout the country just to have a little taste test because she didn't know exactly where she wanted to live. And, unless you have ties somewhere, you're not finding yourself in Minneapolis. You're not really going to Cincinnati. You're not flying down to, Fort Myers, Florida very frequently. But there's so many cities, Bend, Oregon, all these random cities that a lot of people live in. So they must like it. And she just traveled and stayed in a place for, I don't know, a week or two just to get a little bit of a vibe. And I think that's so cool. If you can do that, if you can manage that with your work and stuff, how cool to sample all these little cities and get some real life experience and open your eyes to a city that you would never know existed really unless you had some time there. I have no idea how Raleigh, maybe I'm mispronouncing that, Raleigh, North Carolina. I have no idea what's there. No idea. I've heard the Carolinas are great, especially North Carolina. Don't know anything about it. So how cool would that be to take 4 months, take a week in one city and just bop, 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 bop. I think it'd be really cool. I can't do that right now. And honestly, I really like Utah. If nothing else, my family's close by, and I like hanging out with them. We're a pretty tight crew. But there are a lot of places that I could see myself potentially liking. There's a lot of places in Washington, Oregon, Colorado that have a lot of mountains and a lot of the same stuff. New Mexico, a lot of the same stuff as Utah does. But Idaho, I just haven't really ventured out there. So I don't know. It's an idea. If anyone's done that, it'd be interesting to hear. I'd love to hear your experience with that. But life's weird, I don't know. I am someone who often finds themselves in their head, right? Up here. And one thing I was thinking about, and this has been referenced from a lot of, different ways, different people. It's just like all the lives that you can live. I can picture myself living a lot of different lives and all the divergent paths from a single choice. It's a little bit like you are mourning 99.9% of the experiences that you could have had, but you didn't, or you haven't. And because you can't. You can only make one choice at a time, which will lead a little bit down another path, which will then diverge into different choices. And it's, I think mourning is a good descriptor word for me, at least, because I'm actually kind of emotionally affected by thinking about all the lives I haven't lived and that I can't live. And I think that, you know, if I'm not careful, it can quickly go into the realm of ungratefulness, ungratitude, ingratitude. There we go. We got there. It can quickly go into the realm of ingratitude, but in small doses, I mean, even if it is ingratitude, I still feel that. You know, I can't ever be 15 again. I can't have a high school sweetheart. I can't have that because, you know, bye-bye. I'm not in high school. I can't buy Bitcoin when it came out in 2011. No, just kidding. But that would be the single thing I would do differently if I could go back in time to days early on. I don't know. It's just like a lot, you know. You can't get years back, and you can't make different choices. And even if it's not regrets, which, you know, I have plenty of as well, it's just different. What if I had studied economics? What if I had studied finance? What if I didn't go to college and just got started on, you know, entrepreneurial stuff? There's endless choices. What if I moved to, like, and the reason why I'm just like throwing these out in my head is not because it's just a thought experiment, but it's because I have a lot of different interests, and I could really see myself enjoying a lot of those paths, genuinely. I'm not thinking about if I went to art school because I draw probably worse than a 6-year-old in a coma. And that's not much of an exaggeration. But in a lot of ways, I do look back, you know, there's this cool girl, Eileen Gu. She's, you know, this Olympic athlete, and she's like 20. She's a baller, goes to Stanford, gorgeous girl. And it's like, you know, something like that. What if I just dedicated my life? And I think a big one for me is growing up, if I had put more time into learning skills. I do feel like I just kind of I kind of, what's the word? I can't think of the word. I just let a lot of time go in not really any meaningful activities that I can recall. I mean, I did do meaningful things, but there was a lot of time where it was just, and I don't want to use the word productive because it's like you're a kid, calm down, but just kind of impactful, you know, practicing piano, getting in shape, developing a skill, reading books, that kind of thing. I just spent more time than I wished just kind of watching TV or kind of just like dilly-dallying and not playing, right? I mean, I did spend a lot of time playing, and I love play, and it's important, and I love it. But I just kind of felt like a lot of time was dilly-dally. And so yeah, I think about these things, like if I just dived into skiing, if I dived into running, if I dived into just, you know, you get it. What would that have been like? And that is a thought pattern that I find myself in a decent amount of time. Which, you know, once in a while, I think that's okay. Because I think any reflection on the past in a drawn out way should always be tied back into an actionable thing now. And if it's not, I think 90% of the time it is a fruitless activity to dwell in the past. Unless there's lessons that you need to still implement on a character level. I think if there isn't an action attached that you can do now, based on something that you're, you know, just thinking about in the past. I should have not dilly-dallied as much. It's not really a helpful, productive, useful um, time spent. I think so. For myself, like right now, how about I spend less time dilly-dallying? And that is the takeaway for me, right? Like, yes. In other words, it's the classic, the best time to build a tree, to build a tree, to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time is now. And very similarly, I do remind myself that the best time for a lot of these things would have been at 10 years old, right? But I'm not 10 years old, even though I might act 10 years old from time to time. I have to just live with now. And so that's a good reminder. And this lady that was talking on some podcast, I honestly didn't watch the whole thing. I saw a clip on it on Instagram. She was saying a very similar thing, how we only have, and I'm tying it all in now, how I say I've mourned the lives that I haven't lived or I'm not living right now. I can seriously name at least 10 significant life paths right now that I could take, and I think I would find really fascinating and really exciting and happy. And so it's tough to kind of pick a path sometimes for myself. And it doesn't just have to be like career or who you're dating, but what you're spending your time doing, right? I mean, there's so many things that I could go climbing 4 hours a day, 5 times a week, and have fun and like be down. I could do the same for tennis, skiing, running, and running associated activities. I'm not going to run 4 hours every day. But like lifting, stretching, eating well, training. I could do that for reading. I could read 4 hours a day, or listen to books. Probably a hybrid. I could do that. This kind of thing, filming stuff for the world, for myself, developing that skill. There's things I could spend a significant amount of time doing each day, and maybe it would lead to something. Most likely not, but I would find a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction in it. And even on a larger scale, my sister's going to Alaska for the summer to be a tour guide, like on a backpacking trip. I wouldn't do that, but something similar, like go live in a van for a year. Or Matthew McConaughey, he just kind of like dipped and went to the Amazon for a little bit. In his book Green Lights, talks about that. That would be super cool. I would be down to live in Korea for a couple years. I'm rambling, okay? The point is, there are genuinely specific life paths that I could take and be excited about. And this lady on the podcast was talking about how everything I talked about, with looking back with a little bit of mourning again. I didn't take this path. I didn't dedicate myself in this time period. I made some choices that kind of veered me off of progression or fulfillment, and it's just kind of sad. Or just as simple as I went to this college, what if I went to this college? Those types of things are not worth your time, because we have one life. We have one life. And these are kind of her words now. I don't want to plagiarize. But she's talking about how if you have 3 kids, you don't know the experience of having 1 kid. You don't know if it would have been better, if it would have been worse. If you had 6 kids, you don't know if it would have been better or worse. And you will never know. And so being in that mind space all the time, it makes it so you're not living your life. And it, honestly, it kind of depresses me that I can't have all these different experiences. I don't know what it's like to live in Korea as a 26-year-old white dude and just who's like, starting a business there. I don't know that. I don't know what it's like to live in a van at 26 across America and seeing every state and meeting all these really cool people and building these really cool connections. I don't know what it's like to be a travel blogger or whatever, These cool things, I won't know. I might do some of those things in the future. Not travel blogging, gosh. But I don't know. Essentially, it's depressing enough that I can't have these multiple experiences. How much more depressing if that consumes my mind to the point where I can't even live the one life I can live. So it's just not fruitful. And I think that's helpful for me because obviously that's not going to stop any sort of related thought of other paths that I'm not taking from coming in. But for me, it helps me think pragmatically often, like, oh, this is a useless activity, so I'm going to try to recognize that and get off that train track of thinking next time it comes up pretty quickly. So bit of that's just been on my mind about in a very morphable life phase, just making the next decision and being open to new experiences and trying to not mourn the endless possibilities that you inevitably can't take, at least right now. Mark Manson says you can accomplish anything you want, but you can't accomplish everything you want. And I think that's really important for me to remember in this phase of life. So essentially what I'm trying to say is I'm going to join a rock band and it's going to be dope. No, I'm not going to do that, but it would be cool. So that's what's been on my dome recently. And yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of to wrap things up. So take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Peace.